Boss told me, be grateful for the paycheck. He didn't expect what I did with his paycheck. My boss stole my $1 million idea in front of the entire board, then told me to be grateful I even had a job. What he didn't know was that I was about to turn his own arrogance into his downfall. The glass-walled conference room felt like an aquarium, and I was the trapped fish watching it all happen. Marcus stood at the front, his hand casually pointing at my presentation slides, every single one of them. My charts. My numbers. My cost-saving model that had taken me 3 months of sleepless nights to create. I'd spent late nights at the office, drinking cold coffee and eating stale energy bars at my desk while crunching spreadsheets. The CEO sat in the front row, leaning forward with genuine interest. Board members scribbled notes rapidly. Marcus's voice was smooth and confident as he explained my $1 million discovery like it came straight from his genius brain. I felt my stomach twist and turn. My colleague Jenna, sitting 2 seats away, didn't even hide her disgust. She rolled her eyes, so hard I thought they'd get stuck there permanently. When Marcus finished explaining my work, the applause was immediate and thunderous. People actually stood up and cheered. Someone literally said, "Marcus, you're changing this company." No one looked at me. No one even acknowledged I existed in that room. I was invisible. I'd saved the company $1 million, and I was completely invisible. After the presentation ended, I waited for Marcus in his office hallway. I was shaking, not from fear, but from pure rage burning through my veins. He came strolling out like he'd just won an award, talking on his phone. "Yeah, they loved it," he said into the receiver. "This is going to get me the promotion for sure." I stepped directly in front of him. "Marcus, we need to talk.
Right now.
This is important." He looked annoyed, like I was interrupting something incredibly important. He waved his hand dismissively and said, "Make it quick. I have another meeting." We went into his office, and I closed the door behind me, my heart pounding. "That was my work," I said, my voice steady, but burning with anger inside. Every single slide, every number, every analysis, every recommendation. I created that entire presentation from scratch. Marcus leaned back in his chair and actually laughed, this deep, mocking laugh that echoed through the office and made my skin crawl. "Be grateful for the paycheck, Sandra," he said, staring at his computer screen instead of looking at me directly. "Without me recognizing your potential and letting you work on this project, you'd still be job hunting somewhere." The words hit me like a physical blow. I left his office feeling like something had cracked inside me, something that would never fully heal the same way again. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept replaying the presentation over and over in my mind, like a broken record. I kept seeing everyone applauding Marcus. I kept hearing his voice explaining my work like it belonged to him. Around 3 a.m., I got out of bed and went to my laptop in the dark. I pulled up my email history and started reading through every message about this project carefully. My fingers moved across the keyboard, and I created a new folder on my personal cloud drive. I labeled it Evidence in bold letters. I started systematically moving every email, every draft, every spreadsheet with clear timestamps into that protected folder. I was documenting everything. I was going to prove the truth, no matter what it took. Let me take you back 3 months to the beginning. Marcus had found me at my desk on a Friday night. The office was completely empty. Everyone else had gone home hours ago. I was still there, alone in the darkness, crunching numbers and trying to make sense of our company's failing budget. We were hemorrhaging money every single month. People were genuinely nervous about layoffs. Some employees had already started updating their resumes. The company's future looked genuinely dark and hopeless. Marcus pulled a chair up to my desk and sat down. "Sandra," he said softly, and I remember thinking he seemed genuinely concerned about the situation. "I need your help with something critical. The company is in real trouble, and I need someone I can trust." He put his hand on my shoulder in a way that felt supportive. "If you can figure out how to save our budget, I promise you, I will make sure you're recognized for it. Your name will be on everything." I believed him completely. I actually believed that if I did amazing work, amazing things would happen for me in return. I was so naive. I threw myself into that project like my life depended on it. I worked until midnight most nights, every single night. I brought my lunch to my desk, so I could keep working through lunch hours without interruption. I missed my sister's birthday party because I was analyzing our vendor contracts. I missed my best friend's engagement party because I was still at the office. I found inefficiencies absolutely everywhere. Our supply chain was bloated and inefficient. We were overpaying for services by astronomical amounts. We had completely redundant processes costing us thousands every single month. I created a comprehensive cost-cutting strategy that I was genuinely proud of. I calculated that if the company implemented every single recommendation I made, we'd save exactly $1,235,000 in the first year alone. That was real money. That was significant impact. I made the presentation myself, staying late one night and creating stunning visual slides with clear data visualizations and compelling numbers. I rehearsed it in my empty office, practicing my delivery over and over. I was ready. Then Marcus asked to see my presentation the morning before the board meeting arrived. I showed it to him with pride, thinking he'd be impressed. He looked through every single slide carefully, asking detailed questions about my methodology and assumptions. "This is incredible," he said, nodding slowly. "This is absolutely going to save the company from financial disaster." I felt so incredibly proud. I thought he was genuinely impressed with my work and my analysis. "Let me take this to the board," he said. "We'll present it together as a team." I agreed enthusiastically. I was excited to finally get credit for my work. I thought this was my big break. But that night I couldn't sleep. A weird feeling was bothering me deep in my gut. Something didn't feel right about the situation. The next morning, I went to the boardroom early to set up my laptop and prepare. Marcus was already there, fiddling with the presentation on the big screen. When I walked over to check on things, he quickly minimized the window on the screen. "Oh, hey," he said casually, moving in front of the laptop. "I was just reviewing everything one more time. It looks absolutely great." Something about his body language made my stomach drop completely. The presentation started, and I realized what he'd done in the quiet of the night. He'd removed my name from every single slide systematically. Where it said Cost-Saving Analysis by Sandra Mills, now it just said Strategic Operations Review. Where I'd included a comprehensive slide showing my detailed research methodology, it was completely gone. My title slides, all removed entirely. But all my numbers, all my analysis, all my innovative work, it was still there untouched. He'd literally stolen the content and erased me from it like I never existed. I felt tears burning my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not there. Not in front of everyone watching. I just sat there motionless, watching my boss take credit for every single bit of my work. The board members were visibly impressed. The CEO looked genuinely excited. And Marcus smiled like he'd just created the Mona Lisa himself. He was basking in glory that wasn't his to claim. At the office party celebrating the brilliant cost-cutting discovery, Marcus raised his glass high for a dramatic toast. "To my innovative efficiency model," he announced proudly, grinning at the entire crowd of employees. "This is going to revolutionize how we do business completely. This is my vision for our company's future." He looked directly at me when he said my vision, making sure I understood what he'd done. I was standing alone in the corner with a plastic cup of awful punch, watching my boss steal my entire professional identity in front of everyone. Jenna came and stood next to me quietly. "This is absolutely insane," she whispered with anger. "He's completely lying through his teeth. Everyone knows you did that work yourself." But that was the problem. Everyone knew, but no one was actually saying anything about it publicly. They were all just accepting his false narrative without questioning it. That's when I understood something crucial. Staying silent meant accepting that I deserved this treatment. It meant accepting that my work didn't matter. It meant letting him win completely. The next day, I started my secret operation that would change everything. I created a private folder on my personal cloud storage, protected with a complex password only I knew. I started saving absolutely everything related to the project. Every email about the project. Every draft of the presentation, every spreadsheet I'd created, every communication between me and Marcus, every text message between us. I even took detailed screenshots of our conversations and saved them as PDFs for documentation. I printed out my original presentation and stored it in a locked box at home. I was building an airtight legal case that no one could dispute or argue against. I found the original file on my laptop with my name clearly on it and timestamps proving when I created it. I compared it side by side with what Marcus had presented to the board. The evidence was completely undeniable. He'd opened my file, deleted my name, made minor edits to claim ownership, and presented it as his own intellectual property. Then something happened that made everything worse and more personal. I overheard Marcus talking to the CEO in the hallway outside my office. I wasn't eavesdropping on purpose. I just happened to be printing something important at the printer nearby. The board is asking for a follow-up strategy, Marcus was saying with confidence. Something more detailed and comprehensive. I'm thinking I'll expand the model significantly, maybe add some new variables and layers. There was a pause. Then he said something that made my blood boil with rage. Sandra did most of the grunt work, sure, but honestly, the real innovation came from my strategic thinking. I just need her to handle the technical stuff while I present the bigger picture to executives. He was literally planning to use me again. He wanted me to do more work, so he could take more credit for my innovations. That's when I made a decision that would change everything permanently. I stopped helping him completely and without explanation. The next day, when Marcus asked me to review his follow-up proposal for the board, I said I was too busy with other projects. When he needed data analysis for another project, I said my schedule was completely packed with deadlines. When he came to my desk looking stressed and desperate, asking if I could just quickly verify some numbers, I said I had critical deadlines I absolutely couldn't miss or delay. For the first time since I'd started working there, I wasn't available for him anymore. I wasn't his tool anymore. And without me, his work fell apart spectacularly in obvious ways. His follow-up proposal had errors absolutely everywhere throughout the document. His numbers didn't match up. His assumptions were completely flawed and illogical. The board started asking tough questions. Marcus panicked visibly. He started staying late into the night, looking more and more stressed every single day. Then Marcus made his biggest mistake of all. He blamed me publicly and loudly. In a meeting with the entire department present, he announced that my original data must have been fundamentally flawed from the beginning. He said I was careless and sloppy. He said my methodology was questionable and unreliable. He literally told the CEO that I wasn't as thorough as I seemed and was potentially overrated. I was sitting right there in the meeting, listening to him destroy my professional reputation to save his own skin from accountability. That's when Jenna stood up from her seat. "That's not true at all," she said, her voice sharp and clear. "Sandra's work was perfect and thorough. Everyone in this department knows it." Marcus glared at her with real anger. "Well, everyone's not the one who has to answer to the board when projects fail," he snapped back at her. But the damage was done. He'd shown everyone his true character. A week later, I got called into HR. A formal written warning was placed in my personnel file for negligent data analysis on the March project. I didn't even work on the March project. It was entirely Marcus's responsibility. Marcus had done that entirely on his own, and now I was being punished for his mistakes. My boss was systematically destroying my professional reputation while simultaneously stealing credit for my successes. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open. My hands were literally shaking with overwhelming anger and deep hurt. I started typing my resignation letter with tears in my eyes. I wrote, "I am resigning from my position effective immediately. I have decided to pursue other opportunities that better align with my values." I didn't send it. I saved it as a draft in my documents. Not yet. It wasn't the right moment. But while I was sitting there in the darkness, something shifted fundamentally in my mind and perspective. I kept thinking about my cost-saving model, the one that saved the company $1 million. That model was revolutionary and innovative. It was smart and well-designed. It was genuinely valuable and transformative. But it wasn't valuable because Marcus said it was valuable. It was valuable because I created something genuine and effective and well-researched. And if I could do it once for a company I was desperate to impress, I could definitely do it for myself and my own business. I opened a new document on my laptop and titled it boldly, Mills Analytics Business Plan. What if I started my own consulting company? What if I used my expertise to help other businesses? What if I stopped waiting for people like Marcus to recognize my worth and just created my own success on my own terms? I spent the next 3 weeks planning in complete secret every single night. Every evening after work, I researched business registration requirements meticulously. I looked up how other consulting firms operated successfully. I studied successful entrepreneurs' stories and their strategies. I created a detailed, comprehensive business plan with real projections. I watched YouTube videos about freelance consulting and business startups. I designed a professional logo in Photoshop myself. I drafted my website copy and marketing materials. I made a list of potential clients and industry contacts. But there was a massive problem blocking my progress. I didn't have enough money saved up. I'd been saving aggressively for years, but I only had about $3,000 in my savings account total. To launch Mills Analytics properly, I realistically needed at least $7,000. I needed money for business registration, website hosting, professional marketing materials, and enough to survive for at least 3 months while I built my client base. I was stuck without that capital. Then Marcus called me into his office again, and he delivered what I now recognize as the best motivation I could have received at that exact moment. "You lack loyalty," he said coldly, staring at me with genuine contempt and disdain. "You're not a team player. You're selfish and ungrateful. You're not committed to this company's success or my leadership." I just let him rant and get it all out. He continued, his voice getting louder. "Frankly, you wouldn't last a week on your own in business. You need this job. You need this company. You need me to guide you." He smiled at me like he was doing me a personal favor by keeping me employed. That's when I smiled back at him, not a nervous, scared smile, but a real, calm, knowing smile that confused him. "We'll see," I said quietly with absolute confidence. Marcus's face went completely confused. He'd expected me to argue or cry or defend myself desperately. Instead, I'd just given him a cryptic response and walked out calmly. That night, I did the math carefully. My next paycheck was coming in exactly 4 days. It was a bonus month for the company. My check would be exactly $5,000 after taxes. That would bring my total savings to $8,000. That was enough. That was exactly enough to launch Mills Analytics properly. On Monday morning, I walked into the HR office with 2 envelopes in my hands. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst through my chest. The HR manager, Ms. Patterson, looked up from her desk in surprise. "Sandra, what brings you in?" I handed her the first envelope with determination. "My resignation letter," I said clearly. "Effective immediately." Before she could even open it, I handed her the second envelope carefully. "And this is documentation." She slowly opened the envelope and started reading through my printed evidence. My original presentation, my emails, my drafts with clear timestamps, screenshots of my work, my name on every single document. Miss Patterson's eyes got wider and wider as she read through everything. "This is," she started, but then Marcus burst through the door, like he'd been waiting right outside listening. His face went completely pale when he saw me sitting there with all my evidence spread out on Miss Patterson's desk. "What's going on here?" he demanded, but his voice was shaking noticeably. I didn't say anything. I just stood up calmly, gathered my personal items from the desk I'd sat at for 6 years, and walked past him with my head held high. My coworkers watched me leave the conference room. Some of them looked shocked and surprised. Some looked sad to see me go. But a few of them looked genuinely proud of my actions. One person, the young guy from accounting who I'd mentored, actually started clapping slowly as I walked past his desk. Others joined in. By the time I reached the elevator, my entire department was applauding my departure. Marcus stood frozen in the hallway, watching me leave with his jaw clenched. As the elevator doors closed, I heard him mutter under his breath, "She'll come crawling back." I smiled to myself. He had absolutely no idea what was about to happen next. That Friday, I deposited my final paycheck with trembling hands. $8,000 in my checking account. It felt like I'd just won the lottery and my life was beginning. I immediately began the process of officially registering Mills Analytics as an LLC. I paid for a professional website designer. I created business cards at a printing company. I set up a LinkedIn company page professionally. I wrote detailed service descriptions for my offerings. Then I did something scary. I started reaching out to people in the business world. I went to networking events in my city. I talked to business owners about their challenges. I shared my story about how I'd revolutionized a company's finances. I posted about business efficiency and cost-saving strategies on social media consistently. I emailed small business owners I found online with personalized messages. Most ignored me completely. Some were polite but uninterested in my services. But then, after 2 weeks of hard work and rejection, I got a response that changed everything. It was from a manufacturing company called TechFlow Industries. "We're very interested in learning more about your services," the email said. My hands shook as I read it. If you're enjoying this story, please like and subscribe right now. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss what happens next. This is where things get really intense. TechFlow Industries was struggling financially in ways I could immediately understand. Their CEO, a woman named Victoria, told me when we first talked on the phone that they'd been losing money consistently for 2 years straight and couldn't figure out why. They tried hiring other consultants before, but nothing had worked. "Everyone just tells us we need to cut staff," Victoria said with frustration. "But I don't believe that's the answer. I believe there's something we're missing." I knew exactly what they were missing because I'd seen it before. I spent an entire week at TechFlow analyzing every single aspect of their operations meticulously. I reviewed their vendor contracts line by line. I examined their supply chain in detail. I looked at their spending patterns carefully. I created detailed spreadsheets with my analysis. And I found exactly what I was looking for: inefficiencies absolutely everywhere. I created a comprehensive cost-saving strategy specifically designed for TechFlow's unique situation. I analyzed their situation with fresh eyes and identified problems that other consultants had completely missed. I found that they were overpaying for materials by 30%. Their warehouse operations were completely disorganized, causing massive inefficiencies and waste. They had redundant software subscriptions costing them tens of thousands annually. I calculated that if they implemented my recommendations, they'd save exactly $320,000 in the first year alone. I presented it to Victoria with a professional presentation that was even better than my original one. She looked at the numbers, looked at me, and tears actually came to her eyes. "This is incredible," she said. "This is exactly what we needed." Mills Analytics had just landed its first client. TechFlow hired me on a contract basis to oversee the implementation of my recommendations personally. I worked directly with their team to restructure their operations completely. Every recommendation I made was implemented exactly as I suggested. And the results were even better than projected. By the end of the first quarter, they'd saved $110,000. Victoria was absolutely thrilled. More importantly, she told everyone she knew about me. She referred me to her friends in the manufacturing industry. She posted about me on social media. She told her entire business network that I was revolutionary. Within 3 months, I had 5 clients. Within 6 months, I had 15. Mills Analytics was thriving beyond my dreams. Then one day, I received an email that made my entire body go cold with shock. The subject line read, "Independent Consultant Inquiry Urgent." The email was from the board at my old company. They wanted to hire an external consultant to audit a new project their operations director was leading. They were specifically looking for someone who could objectively evaluate the project's methodology and results. They wanted to make sure everything was legitimate and effective. They didn't know that their operations director was Marcus. They didn't know I used to work there. Someone had recommended Mills Analytics for the job. I read that email 5 times. My hands shook as I typed my response. Yes, I would be absolutely delighted to assist you with this important project. I didn't mention my previous employment there. They didn't ask about it. I didn't volunteer any information. Walking back into that building was absolutely surreal. Everything looked exactly the same beige walls, the same fluorescent lights, the same coffee machine that never worked properly. But I felt completely different. The receptionist's eyes went wide when she saw me walk in. Is that Sandra? She whispered to her coworker in shock. I smiled confidently. Hi, yes, I'm here for the board meeting. I walked past the office where I used to work suffering. I walked past the conference room where Marcus had stolen my presentation publicly. My old desk was empty. They'd already replaced me. When I turned the corner to the boardroom, I saw him. Marcus was walking out of his office, looking stressed and tired. When he saw me, he froze completely. His face went white as a ghost. I didn't say anything to him. I didn't need to. I just kept walking toward my meeting with power and purpose. Over the next 3 days, I reviewed Marcus's work in excruciating detail and found it was falling apart badly. His efficiency model was completely based on my original formula, but he'd changed key variables without understanding the mathematics behind them. He'd made oversimplified assumptions that didn't hold up. He'd cut corners I would never have cut. His projections were mathematically impossible. His timeline was unrealistic and flawed. His data was outdated and irrelevant. It was obvious to anyone who actually understood this work that Marcus didn't understand it at all. He just copied what I'd created, hoped no one would look too closely, and tried to build a career on stolen intellect. I created a comprehensive audit report. Every error was documented perfectly. Every assumption was questioned and challenged. Every flaw was exposed completely. And at the bottom, I signed it in bold letters, Sandra Mills, Mills Analytics. The board called an emergency meeting immediately. Marcus was there, sitting confidently at the conference table. The chairman pulled up my audit report on the big screen. Marcus's face went pale. The chairman looked directly at him and asked the question that changed everything. Marcus, can you explain why Ms. Mills' proprietary formulas appear in your files, word for word, with your name written directly over hers? The conference room went silent. I smiled calmly, knowing that everything I'd worked for had just come true. My boss's career was about to collapse completely, and there was nothing he could do to stop it.